I just felt like I needed to look down the hallway. And when I looked down the hallway, I saw George. He was clear as day. He was somewhat transparent, but he was very visible. And he had eyes that were so crystal blue. And as soon as he got to where both of us were, I was keeping an eye on him. He turned and walked into the living room. And as soon as he passed my dad's shoulder, my dad looks up. And as George continued on, my dad was following him with his eyes, and I was looking at both of them really. And he walked all the way through the room and it went through the wall, and then that was it. I looked at my dad and I said, "Did you see that?" And he said, "Yeah, of course I did." And I said, "Okay." Didn't quite believe him. And I said, "Well, who was it then?" He says, "It was George." I think my childhood was excellent. I had loving parents that provided really good for us, and it was a loving home and a great environment. I'm spiritual in I believe in family, and I believe in being good to other people, and I try to keep a positive outlook in life, and I try to exude positiveness. If I'm around negativity for very long, it wears on me, and I have to separate myself from it so that I can get back to where I feel like I need to be on a daily basis. I think that we have a soul, if that's what you want to call it. I think that some part of us does continue without a body. I think that some people do spend a little bit of time here before they go wherever it is that we go. I think some people get stuck here. That maybe just troubled or something tragic happened to them and they don't know how to let themselves continue to wherever it is that we go. That's the best I can figure it out to this point. But I know that there is an interim from the time we die until we go. And I think it changes with every situation, with every person. I came over to watch a football game with my dad. My mom was busy doing something somewhere else. I think she had a meeting somewhere or something. And so my father and I were enjoying the game in our living room. And I had a view down our hallway that leads to the bedrooms and the bathroom. And my father was shoulder to shoulder with me, but he was not able to see down the hallway. He was able to see the TV that was in front of both of us, big TV. And at some point during the game, I just felt like I needed to look down the hallway. And when I did, George was my dad's best friend, as a matter of fact, and his wife was my mother's best friend. And he had just passed very recently to that day. And when I looked down the hallway, I saw George. He was clear as day, and he always wore a white polo shirt with an emblem from the American Legion on it. He always wore his faded blue jeans and his white Reeboks. And he had eyes that were so crystal blue that when you met him, that was the first thing that you'd see. And so when I looked down the hall and saw him, he was somewhat transparent, but he was very visible. And his eyes stood out greatly. I almost didn't see much features on his face, but it was the eyes. It was the white polo shirt with the emblem on it and his faded jeans that he always wore. And he came down the hallway towards me. And as soon as he got to where both of us were, I was keeping an eye on him. He turned and walked into the living room. And as soon as he passed my dad's shoulder, I was to my dad's right, so I could see behind him. He passed my dad's shoulder, and I was watching both of them. And my dad looks up, and as George continued on, my dad was following him with his eyes, and I was looking at both of them really. And he walked all the way through the room, and it went through the wall, and then that was it. So I looked at my dad and I said, "Did you see that?" And he said, "Yeah, of course I did." And I said, "Okay." Didn't quite believe him. And I said, "Well, who was it then?" He says, "It was George." And I'm like, wow, I'm blown away. So we both saw George, and my dad didn't think it was a big deal, like he had been through an experience like that before. And I said, "What's up? What's up?" why are you like, you've seen something like this before and I'm tripping right now? And he shared with me something that he never did before, because he knew that I had enough on my plate in life. I was struggling at life as it was. So he never told me that there was a strong presence of clairvoyancy and spiritual consciousness. His grandmother was a very strong woman, and she had premonitions and she saw things. But back then you didn't share that stuff because they could put you in an institution. People would think you're crazy. You just didn't talk about it. But he shared with me then that I had that ability too. And over the years after that, I started to grow it a bit. I started to be more receptive to things like that. But it was a great experience. I mean, I felt fortunate. I felt fortunate to be able to experience that. It was turning over a whole different part of my life that I've enjoyed, actually. Found it very interesting. That was the first time that I had ever experienced something like that. I wasn't scared at all. It was great. I thought that I was so fortunate to be able to share that with my father and to actually see George for one more time. And I believe that it was George. We all got along very well. George and my dad were super close, and he was close with me. He was such a nice guy, and we got along well, had a lot of common interests. And I think that was his way of saying, see you guys later. Just letting us know he was there, and we'll get back together. The second experience that I had, seeing a spirit, someone that had already passed, and I had seen them again, and it almost looked like they were there. I mean, this time it was my neighbor, and I had known him since I was 3 years old. And my name's Todd, and his nickname for me was Toddler. So I spent a lot of time with him over the years. He was a very influential, big influence in my life. And he had passed at 83 years old. And it was kind of sudden, and he didn't suffer, and he was gone. And so I was next door doing some work for his wife. The backyard needed to be cleaned up, and a lot of work needed to be done, and I was the one to do it because I was the only one around. So I never minded pitching in over there. So I was in their backyard, and I looked up to their second story window. That it was the room that used to be his gun room, and he had a lot of guns, but he spent a lot of time in that room. And I saw him plain as day standing in the window looking out. And the odd thing is it seems like when I have these sightings that clothes are what they're clothed in is a big deal. Like with George, he had on what he always wore, but Don was dressed in his 1970s. They were clothes that he wore that I remember seeing him wear. And he had an OP shirt on, and he had his long curly hair, which he had lost by the time he passed away. And he had these glasses on that he always wore. And it was him in his 1970s garb, and he was strong, and he was staring out the window. He didn't look at me. It's not like he noticed me or anything, but I stared as long as I could because I wanted to enjoy the experience. I loved the man. He was a big influence in my life, and at some point you have to blink or walk away, and when I did, he was gone. But that lasted for probably several minutes. I was just taking it all in and enjoying all of it. There is life after you die. There is some kind of energy that carries on. I can't explain it. I don't even try to completely understand it. But I do feel as though I'm a person that is of the mindset that can see it, can accept it, and you have to be open to it. If you're not open to it, I believe that you cannot see it. You won't see it. But I feel like I'm so fortunate, and I invite any of that in my life. I would do it again and again and again, and I don't care who it's with or who I see or whatever. I just feel like I'm fortunate to be able to experience those things. There's more than people let on to in life after death, spirits, where they go. But if the spirit, the person that's passed, has enough energy to actually make themselves visible to me, I find that absolutely amazing. And I've seen it. I know what I've seen. There was no drugs or alcohol involved, and I was definitely of my right mind and in a good place both times that I experienced that. So there was a third spirit that I have seen. It was different this time, though. And I believe it to be my father. My father had... Might get a little emotional, but he had a sudden death. He had an encapsulated mass in his kidney, and it was cancer, and so he had his kidney removed. And it's ironic that the day of the surgery, I worked for my father, a family business, and I was going to open up the shop in Orange County, and we always had breakfast together, whether he was going or whatever. And out of character for him, he said, I'm not going to do the surgery. I'm not going to have them do the surgery. And I said, what do you mean? So it's like I took advantage of this time because it was always him telling me how things were, and he made sense and he was right. There was nothing I could say about it. Well, this time it was my turn. And so I said, what do you mean you're not going to go get the surgery? You have to. You don't have a choice. If you don't, you're going to have cancer and you're going to die a miserable death. So I don't really know what was said too much after that, but he did go get the surgery done. He had his kidney removed. And after that, he was okay for a little while. He was recovering here at the house and he would be doing good. And then he would start to get confused with his thoughts and his words, and you could tell something's wrong. And so he would go to the hospital, and so his liver and his kidney that was left wasn't quite working right. And so he would get a blood transfusion, and this happened several times. And it was the Thanksgiving after he had his kidney out that it happened really bad. He needed to go to the hospital. And so right in the middle of all the family being here and everything, getting ready to have dinner, my mom had to take him to the hospital. Well, this time when he had the blood transfusion, he got a staph infection from the hospital, and it was bad. And so the doctor told us that they wanted to put him in a drug-induced coma for a week so that they could give him the heaviest antibiotics possible without killing him to try to get that staph infection to go away. And I remember because it was Valentine's Day, and that was the end of the week that he was in the coma. And I went to the hospital that morning, and my sister went up and opened up the shop. And I remember the doctor coming into the room and telling me, he said, you better call your sisters. They need to be here. And so they got there, and they said, well, you've got to make the decision or, take him off of the life support. He said, he's not going to get better. That was it. That was the chance we had. It didn't work. And so Valentine's Day that year, we took him off life support. And I stayed there until 2:30 in the morning. And I had to open up our shop that morning, and so I went home to get a couple hours of sleep. My oldest sister stayed there. So at 5:30, I got a phone call, and he had just passed. And it was hard on me. I was 36 years old. I wasn't ready for him to go. And I felt kind of lost, but down the road a little ways. We're talking probably 2 years. And honestly, it kind of had a part in ruining my marriage at the time. I thought I was being like my dad, who I respected so much. I thought I was being like him with my family, but I was far the opposite. And it really ruined the relationship with my kids and my wife. So we had separated, and my wife was having some emotional problems, and so I decided to have, it was my stepdaughter and stepson, I decided to have my stepdaughter stay here with my mother and I, because my wife couldn't take care of herself. So I made sure that she continued with her high school, and she had graduated, and so we had a graduation party for her here one day. And that afternoon, we were all out by the pool on the patio, and there was a bench next to the pool. And early in the day, before really anybody got there, I noticed this bright orb of light. It was a white light. It was about the size of a basketball. And I saw it come into the yard, and I saw it settle in right on that bench that was by the pool. And it didn't move, and I knew what it was. I knew who it was. And I just felt it with everything I have. I knew it was him, and I didn't say anything to anybody. Everybody showed up. Everybody had a great day. And the day was winding down. People were starting to go home. And I looked over there, and it was still there. But at that very moment, it slowly started to rise and go up. And then it just faded to nothing. And I knew at that time, I knew it was my father. I knew it was him. Checking in, making sure everybody was okay. And I think it was his way of saying, you guys are going to be okay. So I can go now. And I know that that's who it was. I know that's what it was. There's no doubt in my mind. And I haven't seen him since in any way, shape, or form. I think about him a lot. But I think that was his way, just like George showed us. Don showed me too. If you don't allow yourself, I don't think it happens. But if you had a loving relationship or even a decent relationship with a family member when they pass, just know, I know for a fact that they're with you. They're always with you in your heart. You carry them around in your soul. And sometimes they are here for a while in transition, I believe, before they go to wherever we go. I don't have any idea where that is, but I do think it's for eternity.